The Miami Hurricanes have found their new defensive line coach. He played at the U, played in the NFL, and he's coached in the NFL. Damione Lewis, welcome back to the U.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I love this move. And I know that anytime Miami brings in a former Cane for the coaching staff, automatically there's a very high floor of excitement. But in this case, Damione Lewis checks off the boxes. Not only being a guy who brings you some of that Miami nostalgia, but the man can coach. There's no question about that. I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and writer for Canes County at Rivals. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen or your second listen of the day. We're working overtime today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We will talk on this episode about the recruiting impact that Damione Lewis can bring, why we think this is a home run hire, and let's talk about the move. Now, first and foremost, just so there's no confusion, Damione Lewis is not replacing Jason Taylor. Miami still has the Hall of Famer on the staff. Damione Lewis is actually replacing Big Joe Salavea, who was coaching the defensive tackles with Jason Taylor focusing on the defensive ends. Big Joe Salavea moved on to his alma mater, Arizona. So Damione Lewis is going to work with Miami's defensive tackles. He's going to work with Jason Taylor. They're going to be together on this staff. Now, when this move was announced, and by the way, I like to give credit to who had it first, Cane Sport. Gary Furman, Matt Shodell, shout out to you guys for reporting this move, late Tuesday morning before anybody else had it, that Damione Lewis, who, by the way, has just been working on Deion Sanders' staff for the Colorado Buffaloes, he's leaving Boulder to come down to the U, join his alma mater. He informed his players early this morning at Colorado before getting on a plane to Miami. So he did it the right way. He briefed his players, hey, I'm not going to be with you guys next year. I'm taking a different job. And now he's on his way. And the hire has not, folks, been 100% finalized yet. But, the usual corporate stuff, right? Got to fill out the paperwork, the onboarding. So this move right now, tentatively, but it's going to happen. Damione Lewis is going to be a new defensive line coach for the University of Miami. And of course, he played defensive line at the U, and that was 1996 to 2000. Was on the team for 5 years, had a redshirt freshman season, a redshirt year in 96, first got on the field in 97, played through 2000. And what I really like, first and foremost, about the profile that Lewis brings to this job is, as a player, Damione Lewis was part of a group that had to climb from the bottom to the top. His first full season in 1997, Miami went 5-6 that year. Like, they were bad. You remember those early days when people were flying the Fire Butch banner planes. Little did they know that Butch Davis would build the greatest team of all time. But Damione Lewis was part of that climb, right? From 5-6 his first season, then to 11-1 Sugar Bowl champions against Florida his final year in 2000. And that team, by the way, was screwed over by the BCS. Miami should have played for the national championship that year. And of course, 2000 was the prelude to a team. This was after Lewis had gone on to the NFL, the greatest college football team of all time, 2001. Damione Lewis was part of the group that paved the way for that championship. Lewis, in his Miami Hurricanes career, had 15 and a half sacks at Miami, and then went on to play in the NFL for 10 seasons. Lewis was drafted 2001 first round, 12th overall pick by the St. Louis Rams. And during a decade-long NFL playing career, Damione Lewis played for the Rams, Carolina Panthers, New England Patriots, and Houston Texans. He played in 141 NFL games, had 277 career tackles, 23 and a half career sacks from the interior, 4 forced fumbles, 5 fumble recoveries. And, after his playing career was done, we talk about the relevant coaching experience. And again, I know that there's always a certain amount of excitement when Miami hires a former Cane to the coaching staff. But in this case, Damione Lewis checks off the other boxes as well. And even if he hadn't played at Miami, I would still be excited about this hire because he starts his coaching career defensive line coach for the Seattle Seahawks. Quality NFL experience for 3 years. He left Seattle and spent the past 2 seasons where he gets the relevant college coaching experience working under Deion Sanders with the Colorado Buffaloes. And guess what? I know that people always, when they talk about Colorado, they're like, well, great offense, no defense. That wasn't really the case. In fact, the defensive line at Colorado this past season under Damione Lewis's coaching performed exceptionally well. The Buffaloes, they ranked 11th in the country in sacks per game at 3 per game. And inside the Big 12, they were at the top in the important categories of the unit that Lewis coached, the defensive line. Colorado totaled 34 sacks, 79 tackles for loss, both of which led the Big 12 this past season. So, and Lewis, there was big time improvement from 2023, his first year coaching the Buffaloes defensive line, to 2024. They improved in every category. Obviously, of course, the talent has to go out there and do it, but you've got to credit the coaching for bringing in that improvement. So this is a good move. And a little bit more on Damione Lewis's philosophy for coaching defensive lines. And again, he's going to focus on the interior, the defensive tackles, with Jason Taylor focusing on the edge rushers, both of what those guys do really well. Lewis has said that his emphasis to his defensive line is to stop the run first, and then after that, you earn the right to run the pass, to rush the pass. I like that. This is in comments made to canesport.com. They write at CaneSport, in practices, you'll hear Lewis screaming, finish, from the defensive line side. We got Cobra Kai coming to Miami. Finish him. Finish the play. He'll get in guys' faces. They say he's passionate about his craft. And yeah, I would safe to say anybody who played defense Miami in the late 90s, especially if your last name is Lewis, whether it's Ray Lewis or Damione Lewis, you're going to be really passionate and screaming on the field. He said, I just want to see everybody grow. We have to be an absolute menace up front. We're going to be a good team and a good defensive line. I just like winning, he says. I'm a winner to my core. That's my drive and my motivation. And so, folks, on the other side, we're going to look at what Miami now has with their defensive line coaching. Now that tandem, that duo, Jason Taylor, Damione Lewis, is set, and how powerful of a recruiting duo that can be. And yet, now that Miami has gotten their second defensive line coach, is there anything left to fill out that coaching staff? We'll explain that and so much more. You want to keep it locked right here to Locked On Canes. My friends, after the holiday hustle, there's nothing like giving your home a little TLC. I always find that decluttering and refreshing my space helps me get back into a routine. Whether you're tidying up, clearing out, or just want to give your space a new look to start the year, Wayfair has everything you need, all within your budget. I'm currently looking for furniture, and their huge selection makes it easy to find pieces that fit my style and budget. My favorite part, the free and hassle-free delivery, even for larger items. Wayfair's site was so easy to navigate, and I found everything I needed in no time. Give your home the refresh it needs with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Thank you for making this breaking news episode of Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's funny, people are reacting to this move. Like Larry Bluestein was just texting me as I'm doing this episode. A very interesting hire, he says, with Damione Lewis. And Damione, again, he's got NFL coaching experience, having worked on the Seattle Seahawks as their defensive line coach. You like to also have that college experience, having worked under Deion Sanders for the past couple of years and really helped improve that Colorado defensive line into statistically one of the best units in the Big 12 last year and 11th in sacks in the entire country. That was all helped by Damione Lewis's tutelage. And having worked at Colorado the past couple of years, I had an opportunity to improve his recruiting chops, because guess what? Deion Sanders does not do a lot of hands-on recruiting, doesn't make home visits, school visits, is more of a big picture type of guy. So Damione Lewis, I'm sure, past couple of years, has been very boots on the ground, going out there recruiting on behalf of the Colorado Buffaloes. And man, you have something definite to sell to defensive line recruits. And, we like, Joe Salavea, who had been one of Miami's defensive line coaches for the past few years, but I never really got the sense that like recruiting was a big strength or a big superpower for Big Joe. I think Damione Lewis can add that. And not only does Lewis, as a former first round NFL pick, a 12th overall pick, like he can sell that to recruits. Like, hey, I know what it takes to go through that grind to turn myself into a first round pick. That's valuable. And obviously the other defensive line coach, he can walk into your living room with the Hall of Fame jacket, which is, incredibly valuable. But Damione Lewis can not only explain to players that, yeah, he knows what that grind to the NFL draft is like. You've got the extra tie-in of Lewis having played for Miami. So that's another thing he can sell to Miami recruits. He knows what a winning Hurricanes football team can look like and what they're supposed to look like. And again, I go back to what I said at the top of the show. I love the fact that with Damione Lewis's playing history, he was part of that climb, right? And thankfully, Miami's coming off a 10-win season, not a 5-win season. But guess what? Miami did have a 5-win season a few years ago, as we all remember and try to forget about that 5-7 season. But Lewis knows what it means to be part of that team that climbs from 5 wins to, in his case, got up to 11 wins, and a team that really should have played for a national championship. So he can sell that to players as well. And so, yeah, I mean, you've got one defensive line coach with a decade of NFL experience and relevant college experience, and then your other defensive line coach is a Pro Football Hall of Famer. And Jason Taylor, by the way, has already proven his chops as an excellent recruiter for the past couple of years. If you look at some of the players he's landed, Hayden Lowe in this recent cycle, Justin Scott, Armando Blunt, Artavius Jones in the cycle before that. So Jason Taylor is already an excellent recruiter, especially with a lot of these edge guys, but also having his hand in the interior. And with Damione Lewis, it's going to be the same thing. This is going to be, I believe, one of the best recruiting tag teams in the country, right? I mean, if you're looking to land blue chip defensive linemen and you're recruiting up against the Jason Taylor, Damione Lewis combo, you're in big time trouble. Coaching staffs around the country are going to know that, especially if you're trying to come into South Florida and steal the top defensive line recruits. You're going to be contending against the likes of Jason Taylor and Damione Lewis. So, folks, I love anytime you can bring home, a former great Miami Hurricane. And I can understand now why Calvin Harris, we talked about his Twitter post in our earlier episode today, that he said, hey, Canes fans, big coaching news is coming within the next 24 hours. He posted that last night. I think we all figured if Calvin Harris, former, Miami offensive lineman, if he's that excited about it, it's probably going to be a former Canes player. And it was. Damione Lewis is coming home to the University of Miami to coach Miami's defensive tackles. And folks, we are, less than 3 weeks away now from spring football. I think we're 20 days away, a little less than 3 weeks. It's going to start on Monday, March 3rd. So, I can't wait. I'm going to be at that first practice. Can't wait to see what that instruction is going to look like and sound like with Damione Lewis coaching the defensive tackles. I always love watching Jason Taylor coach, and we'll see Miami. And I mentioned, folks, is the staff now complete? No, there is still another spot to fill on the defensive side of football. I believe there's one spot left, and that's probably going to be for a safeties coach. So again, I expect all these positions to be filled by spring football. Miami gets their second defensive line coach today. So now we're going to be on the lookout for who's going to coach the safeties for next year, because Miami has, of course, Zach Etheridge to coach the cornerbacks, defensive backs coach that was added a couple of weeks ago to work under new defensive coordinator Corey Heatherman. We believe Heatherman's probably going to coach the linebackers himself. That's his coaching background. You've got your defensive line coaches set. So safeties coach is one that we're going to look at over the next few weeks. It may get filled sooner, but I would expect within 20 days, Miami's going to have a fully complete coaching staff for the start of spring football. So safeties coach is what we're looking at. Miami's got their final defensive line coach in Damione Lewis, 1996 through 2000, played for the Miami Hurricanes, drafted in the first round, 12th overall pick by the St. Louis Rams in 2001, decade-long NFL career. He actually started his his college career as an administrator at FIU. I think he was there for just 1 year as in like a GM VP type of role in the athletic department, but then went on to do hands-on coaching with the Seattle Seahawks. And I'm sure that experience was invaluable for Damione Lewis as the career comes full circle. Welcome back to the U, D. Lou. Make sure you guys smash the like button. If you're watching us on our YouTube channel, hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you subscribe to the audio version, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your pods. And we'll talk to you again probably tomorrow, but if more news breaks today, well, we'll be back accordingly. We will talk to you guys again next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.